everyone. Welcome to Accelerate's Zip Chat episode 20. So with that, I'd like to introduce our host, Mike Watson. He's our VP of Software Services. He will be running the session today. Mike, over to you.
Thanks, Jill, and welcome everyone to today's Zip Chat. It's Zip Chat number 20, in deeper dive into InsurTech trends for 2022. With me today, I have Vikram and Tim, veteran trend providers, and both, very well versed in the InsurTech space. And I'm sure we're going to have a great conversation. Just a reminder, Zip Chat, it's a panel forum. We do take questions if you're interested in throwing a question out there. But we're going to try to keep this one short and sweet. So we'll see how well we do that as we go through this. We talked about a bunch of general trends, and we'll hit on those as we go through this conversation. But we really want to focus on just a couple of extra trends that we see really kind of interesting in the InsurTech space. And let's just jump into one of those, which is the use of no-code, low-code space. So what we've seen, and what I've personally seen, talking to my clients and my network, is there's a general trend towards no-code, low-code being something that people are considering over traditional software development. And there's a lot of reasons for that, and we'll dive into a few of those here. But generally, like, the cost benefits value of it is the licensing and all of that is starting to really show a good ROI over the long term. I mean, that's my general take on it, just coming from an engineering leadership perspective and thinking about budgets and all that. So with that, Tim, what else is driving this movement to no-code, low-code, especially in InsurTech?
One of the big drivers is security and compliance. So in InsurTech, for a lot of different types of insurers, you just can't get around PHI. You're going to have personal health information when you're doing most insurances, and with regulations and data privacy and the prevalence of hacking and so forth, it is so crucially important to make sure that your data is secure, and even more to the level than something like US HIPAA might require. The clients that we're seeing want security beyond even that level, right? They don't want to be the result or be the victim of any hacking or any data getting out there. And for the really good low-code, no-code platforms out there, security and compliance are just built into the system. They have standard HIPAA compliant offerings. They already have all the practices in place. They have the data security in place on their networks. They can readily and easily show all the compliance reports like SOC2 Type 2 and so forth. And it's all built right into the platform from a platform perspective. But it's also built in and available for the applications to use. So they have robust capabilities as you're building out your applications, where the default security is no security, and you have to be the member of the right. You have to apply security purposefully as you're building the applications with a low-code, no-code platform, so that people can do the things that you're creating. Again, security is off by default. So they're really able to lock down the way they need to and grant access when they need to.
Yeah, that makes sense. I mean, just by default, if you're probably dealing with personal information and sensitive information and all of that. So this idea of security, like I said, is one of those general trends that obviously for maybe very apparent reasons is on everyone's mind. And we talked about this in Zip Chat 18, which you can get off of our website if you're interested in hearing about more about our general trends. But Vikram, what's going on with security generally? Like what is it that's really making this a peak interest?
Right. So Mike, on the security side, and as you said, we had a little bit of a generic discussion in our Zip Chat 18, but more specific to insurance, and the drivers are very similar, right? So where insurers are moving in terms of business trends and where security starts playing a big role, as Tim said, and also where low code starts becoming key there. So one is a lot of movement of the insurance companies to the cloud, right? So that's a big move, big transition which is happening across companies. And that leads to a host of newer challenges around security and compliance that come up, right? So things like how do you provide security on the cloud? And most of the insurance companies or insurance providers or people in the insurance ecosystem have got a very large presence of their infrastructure on-prem, right? So that has been traditionally how insurance companies have been operating. So as the move to cloud happens, most of the infrastructure is going to be in a multi-cloud scenario, where there is going to be a lot of infrastructure on-prem and a lot of infrastructure in cloud. So the step one, or the biggest challenge which companies are facing as they do this transition, is how does security come into play in this multi-cloud scenario? In a traditional client-server scenario, many years have been spent by companies building those firewalls, building that perimeter security. But the moment you move into a multi-cloud scenario, there are newer age companies that are coming up, and that is still being discovered. And that is the reason why, Mike, you hear of all those breaches that are coming up, right, across big businesses. So that is one big piece that is driving this entire move towards security. The second big move is as insurance applications start getting more robust and newer kind of applications start getting built on cloud or in a multi-cloud environment. A lot of third-party software, a lot of newer platforms are being used. And a lot of third-party software have their own vulnerabilities, which sometimes get exposed as security risks. So that is the other area where you are seeing a lot of threat coming out on security. And then the final one, which we all know and which we all have heard so much about, is the data level security. Because the amount of data that now insurers in the ecosystem have, once it starts moving between various the cloud and on-prem across different applications, moves around in the larger ecosystem, data security becomes the other big primary area where a lot of focus of security is going to. And all these 3-4 things combined really lead to the newer age of newer age security products and these low-code platforms, which have a lot of these components of cloud-based and multi-cloud security already built. So that is where security and data privacy and data security and governance is so high in the priority list for the technology leaders today.
Yeah, nobody wants to be on that list of leaked data.
Right.
Yeah, so I was going to move on to something different, but there was a question from the audience that I want to take. It's not really security related, but it is a kind of a really modern trend of responsible AI, right? Like ethical behavior with the data, really is what we're talking about. Have you heard of that coming up? I mean, it's very modern trend, right? Like I would say this is a 3-month, something that's really kind of come to boil in the last 3 months. Anything going on in the ecosystem around that?
Yeah. So on that, Mike, if you read across the various insurance trends that either the insurance leaders or the big consulting companies are talking about, AI is right up there in terms of the trends that are going to impact the insurance business as a whole, right? But having said that, I think, as you rightly put, Mike, AI is very early in its life cycle with the insurance companies. So how are they using AI, right? And then we'll come to the question around ethical AI.
Right.
So,
yeah.
Very basic use of AI is one is accelerating or making claim processing much more intelligent, much faster, much more automated, right? So AI plays a big role there. The second piece of AI is where insurers are using customer and consumer data across various channels to launch newer age products, different kind of products, customizable products. So that is the other use of AI. The third use of AI, where
that makes sense. Customizable products. Yeah. So Vikram, sorry to cut you off, but I do actually want to get Tim's take on this topic in terms of where AI maturity is in sort of the life cycle of InsurTech. Are we still fairly early in the curve where this could be nipped in the bud before it actually becomes a big problem, or are companies progressed pretty far on their AI strategies?
Yeah, it seems like we're still very early in the curve. There aren't a lot of big production adoptions of AI across the insurance industry. And when you talk about ethical AI, there are a couple of different streams to that. First is the training of the AI, right? So you want to make sure that the way that you train your AI doesn't incorporate the biases of the people training it or designing the training. One, to keep it ethical, but also because incorporating those biases can bias the results in inaccurate ways.
Mm-hmm.
So you need to be cognizant of how you're training these AIs and the process that you go through and the data that you're using to train them and so forth. But
that's a really good point, Tim.
The other side of the ethics is how these companies use the data, right? And are they using it in sort of a punitive manner? Are they using it in an exclusionary manner? Or are they using it to actually offer better, smarter products to their customers, right? And that's not really endemic to the technology. It's all about how the people who are implementing the technology choose to use it. So from that regard, it's business ethics that have been around as long as business has been around. You need to be cognizant of the way you're doing things and why you're doing things and the objectives you're trying to achieve, and make sure you're behaving in the best interest of everybody while you do it.
Yeah, that totally makes sense. And going back to the bias point, I mean, from what I know, which is very little, I've done a couple of these zip chats with you, Tim, is that bias exists with the regular people, like, non-artificial people. And so, I mean, you have to start there in a way, right? Like, that's the model training you're talking about. Like, make sure the model is actually taking data that isn't inappropriately biased, right? Because I think all data is slightly biased. Like, you can't get around that. Okay, so let's move back into other topics, if you don't mind, Tim. Do you have one more thing you want to say about that?
No, go ahead.
All right, perfect. So the next thing I want to talk about, like going back to no code, low code specifically, that's the topic we were on. The world is all API driven now, and it seems like no code, low code is set up perfectly, like from what I can tell, to deal in that world, right? Like it's, let's have some other place do the compute, do the algorithms, and let's bring in those results, aggregate them, and make the user experience really, really good. So is that your take on it, Tim?
It is, and that interoperability is so important as we go into customers where we're implementing these low code, no code solutions. They have a variety of different systems that they want these new platforms to integrate with. Everything from their 30-year-old still in COBOL policy management system, admin system, to maybe their state-of-the-art cloud-based accounting system, or SAP or what have you. And so the ability of these platforms to be able to get to that data or the logic wherever it resides, inside the firewall, in the cloud, through a RESTful API, SOAP-based API, or by going against the data directly. That's all crucial to be able to implement these cloud-based solutions in a way that really brings the value of 360-degree view and all those things that you want to try to get out of this, to be able to get to that data to do it. And as we go through more of this, more of those older back office systems are being replaced, fortunately. And this new landscape of partners that are emerging are very fortunately offering their services as APIs, right? Everybody got into the microservice thing 5, 6, 7 years ago. Those still all exist, and they're all still RESTful, which makes it easy. So the integration capability is there in the platforms, and it's definitely an interesting challenge to work through.
Yeah, you highlighted something in there that I think is worth expanding upon, and that's the fact that these new. So I think in the old days, these no code, low code type platforms wanted to own all the data, and it made it complicated to bring it in and have an ecosystem directly in there. And with so many distributed systems and architectures that depend on distributed systems, they've really gone the other way on that. And I think that's really powerful. And Vikram, are you seeing that as a huge enabler for no code, low code?
That is right, Mike, because while Tim talked about the APIs and the microservices based integrations, I think the other piece of low code, no code is the data integrations, because a lot of the data that currently resides in the insurance ecosystem is sitting across multiple different data platforms, right? Starting from 30 years to 40-year-old platforms to the newer age cloud data platform. So that is where the power of the low-code also comes in, where it can seamlessly kind of pick up data, integrate data, and use the microservices infrastructure, right, to move the data around to provide a much better outcome for all the players in that ecosystem. So absolutely, I think that is where the low-code platforms really start shining in terms of their usage for customers.
Yeah, I'm going to say this streak of gray here in my beard, that comes from working with COTS systems that didn't easily integrate and all the challenges that present. Like a big part of my early career was doing integration of multiple COTS systems. I worked for Boeing, one of the largest
You have seen the
reconceptualization. It was like it was really difficult because the data was like sacred and all these COTS systems, and it was interesting the ways that we had to try to get it integrated. The modern world today, like that's it's just a totally different mindset. Like everyone's SOA based. That ages me as well. Service oriented architecture, and I think that's an excellent thing, right? That just really helps you just really move quicker, bring better products to life, which actually surprisingly brings me to the next point, which is what are these new products that are coming out because we have these technologies and these capabilities? Tim, do you have a couple things you can share there?
Sure. This is a trend that's been going for a while. So, look back at like Esurance and Progressive, who were the first organizations to try to sell you insurance online on the web, right? Before that, you had to call or visit an insurance agency. And now you have all of these insurers popping up who will really insure everything, and they're built to be mobile, and they're built around technology first. Companies like Lemonade, where you go to their website and you can insure anything, your car, your pets, term life. I mean, it's all right there with an application right on your mobile phone. It's a whole new way and a whole new experience to pick up this insurance, and it's fast. These insurance companies have had to come up with a way that somebody online or going through their phone can immediately understand what it's going to cost them to get insurance, and then enroll for insurance and get their proof of insurance for their car or what have you immediately. No delays for underwriting, no none of that. And it seems like a lot of secure insurance companies are solving that challenge, or well on their way to, right? The startups are a little bit ahead of the older ones. But it's definitely a really interesting paradigm. We're just trying to get faster and more accurate at everything, and squeeze the margins down so much because you're trying to do that.
Yeah, that makes sense. And so just bringing products to market that make it a better experience for the user, like a truly better experience, right? Not just like you submit a claim and then later you get a response. You actually get sort of in real time a response to what you need. I mean, the world kind of demands that, right? Like, modern digital users, another trend we had, they expect to be able to do everything on their phone, and they expect it to work, without a lot of delays, right? They don't understand the processing delays and why that has to be the way of the world, because there's a lot of things have already been transformed in that way, banking, et cetera.
Yeah, and there are some things that I still don't see that I'm looking forward to. For example, now that once COVID happened, a lot of us went remote, right? And that means instead of driving my car every day, I drive my car once a week. Wouldn't it be cool if I could put collision on my insurance on my car for that day, and not have to leave it on otherwise? And that kind of gets into the customizability of product offerings.
Yeah, which is a complete redo of how they think about underwriting, I would imagine, in the insurance space. Because being able to turn it on and off at will. I mean, I know of like the devices you can put in your car to monitor your speed and all that, and whether you're turning too quickly. But this is like a whole new level, right? It's you control it, right? As opposed, I mean, you do kind of control your driving habits, but like here you're saying, I'm not driving for 2 months. I'm in Europe backpacking. I don't need this insurance for those 2 months, which just isn't the way it works today that I know of. Okay, so that's kind of the technology side, no code, low code. We could probably go on a little bit about examples there, but I want to kind of move this along and talk about analytics, right? Analytics, I think, is huge everywhere, and it's a big topic, right? So it's, we'll probably focus in specifically in analytics, what matters in this space. So, so Vikram, what's going on in this space currently that really helps with analytics? And is there any technology trends there that are propping up?
Sure. I'll kind of jump back to what Tim just said, Mike, around new products, right? And that's where you can start see the power of analytics, right? So just as an example, in let's say healthcare, right? Now everybody has got unique healthcare needs, right? But we have standardized healthcare insurance plans, right? So, and now we are seeing new age companies like a Sidecar, who can offer health insurance to gig economy, which was never there maybe 20 years, 30 years ago. So now to offer those kind of insurance plans or those kind of products, 2-3 things are needed, right? One is you analyze the data. So analytics becomes big in terms of what are the customer needs that you are doing. And there the technology starts playing. What are the analytics platforms you are using? What are the new age data platforms you are using? How are you leveraging the power of cloud in terms of compute and separating that? How can you crunch massive amounts of data in a short amount of time? So that is where analytics is moving. And where the outcome of it we are seeing, Mike, is more in terms of newer age products, customized products, much faster processing of claims, because that is where data is being used very, very effectively today. We are still at a very early stage in terms of where data can or is being used in insurance companies, but that is the direction in which a lot of analytics is moving. And then we talked about AI earlier. The one big piece that we are seeing more and more is this touchless claim, right? How do you use multiple data sources? And now these data sources are not only just pure structured data. It could be images, it could be video files, it could be so on and so forth. How do you use all of that data to provide a seamless experience for a customer? If I'm in an accident, we are all seeing now, you just take a picture and you get your claim processed, right? Most of the time. That has been a huge jump in terms of how data is being used and how analytics is being used in real world implications. And now this starts getting more and more complicated as we get down to healthcare insurance, as we get down to property and casualty insurance, so on and so forth. So that is where analytics is moving, Mike. And a host of InsurTech companies are focusing on those areas where they are building all these AI models, or different models or analytics, which helps claims processing, which makes product launches easier, which helps launch newer age products, and in that sense, newer age businesses too. So that is the way I see analytics moving and creating new business models in insurance.
Gotcha. So I was just thinking as you were saying that, this is probably another one of those situations where big data, like these insurance companies don't think of themselves as big data companies, but
Right.
really with all the data they're collecting, they really are, right? And so that's going to be a shift in mindset about that. Now I'm sitting on a pile of money. Data is money. But sitting on a pile of data that is really useful for all these things, right? So I know, go back 5 to 8 years ago, we knew that we needed to collect this data, but we would just stuff it out there, right? We just put it over there and like hope it will be useful one day and then we'll do something. And I think with modern cloud computing and a different mindset, I think we need to say that that's an important part of our business, and that's how we're going to drive and be competitive in the future. So that mindset shift. And so just briefly on that, Tim, I mean, do you think that's happening in the companies you're talking to, or is it still like they're not quite ready to make that leap?
The early adopters are there and have been there for a while. For example, I'm aware of a disability insurance company who has taken that sort of big data that they've gathered over the past 10 years ran it through analytics, through their actuarials, and now using AI to understand the best treatment plans for people who do go on disability, right? What's the best way to get them healthy and able to go back to work quicker? So yeah, that capability is absolutely out there and being leveraged and being used.
Awesome. Yeah. So I would think just as a general trend, moving into that mindset is probably part of what this analytics is all about. In other places, we've talked about analytics, in terms of visualization and all of that. I mean, is visualization also a part of it here, or is it not quite on the cutting edge of trending?
So we are still moving in that direction, Mike. And just as a data itself, right? You talked about big data, but I think we are just scratching the surface for insurance. The moment, for example, we have IoT devices on automobiles, right? And we already have sensors. If you start collecting data from that to create custom plans, the volume of data is going to explode when we have IoT devices. So visualization of what you get out of that data is going to be critical for any business decisions to be made. So I think we're scratching the surface there. There are a lot of good visualization tools. There are a lot of areas in which visualization is fairly advanced today. But I think just based on amount of volume or kind of data that is now coming in, I think visualization is still needs to catch up to provide that right level of output for business decisions to be made in insurance.
Yeah. I remember a few months ago we did a Zip chat on data visualization, specifically in fintech. And I was surprised during that conversation how much of it was internally focused versus making it pretty for the end user, right? And what I'm hearing from you here is that that's really what's needed, is more understanding how the data is, what stories the data is telling through this visualization, so that you can go off and find new products or enhance your products based on what you learn.
Because if you see as a consumer today, even today, it's very difficult for you to get a full visualization of all the insurance that you are paying for. How have you used it? What is happening? Especially the moment you start going on the health insurance side, it's all a black box, right? So visualization not only helps the consumer, but it also helps the businesses launch newer products, provide much better service, and provide a much more customized approach to insurance. So I think we are still some ways to go there.
Gotcha. Okay, so I mean, there's a lot of directions you could go there, but it sounds like just organizing your data properly and starting to try to understand it is really where the trend is at the moment in InsurTech, which is great. I do have another question from the audience. Pull it up real quick. Special thanks to Jill for being behind the scenes, helping me out with these questions. So there's the questions around open insurance and how is that working? And my non-InsurTech brain tells me that we already talked a little bit about that and touched on it earlier, but maybe I don't know what it is. So Tim, do you want to tell me what open insurance is and how it's being pioneered in the US?
I would want to make sure that we're talking about the same thing. Is that the open insurance initiative where insurance companies are joining in to share data among each other? I guess I'm not sure what the questioner means.
I mean, that could be. Is the audience member still out there? If they could clarify, that's great, because it wasn't 100% clear to me, but it seemed like a great topic to talk about. So I'm happy to entertain that question. Yeah, so it does reference, international markets and then moving to the US. And I know like openness is part of the EU's, big thing. So, very much could be that. Do you have any story on that? Let's just assume it is that. And what's your thoughts on that?
That's actually not something that our current set of clients and prospects is really pulling into yet. I wonder if they're concerned about the sharing and the data security around that, and that they just want to make sure that that's a safe thing to do with their data. We talked a lot about data security at the start of this call.
Yeah, and of course that data is just like in other spaces, like the data is kind of, like I said earlier, money, right? It's kind of your business. It's kind of keys to your business going forward. So having to share some of that data would be not ideal. But but this also goes back to the ethics question, right? Like, what is the right thing to do for the customer, right? So I think hopefully as we move forward in this, that's what we're asking, right? Like, if we're sharing data, is that for the business's purpose or is that for the customer's purpose? And if it's for the customer's purpose and for the ultimate benefit of the customer, then I think, my personal opinion is I'm all for sharing that. I don't run an insurance company, so, maybe that's not the way that we're thinking about it right now, but that's my thought on it. Vikram, any thoughts from you?
Yeah, so to go on the open insurance piece, interoperability is the key word there, Mike. So essentially what, at least that's the way I interpret open insurance, is a standardized API framework which is used across all insurance ecosystem players, right? And since the ecosystem has become very complex, where there are payers, providers, and a host of other agents in that whole ecosystem, how does data flow from one to the other? So that in the end, the service is seamless, the consumer benefits, the consumer can see all that. We talked about it, right? You don't have a full view of your own health insurance plan if you move across different providers. So can I have my own dashboard as a consumer? That is where this will kind of make sense. And there are a lot of initiatives going on in that. So there is a whole open API framework that is out there. But as Tim said, right, companies are very slow to adopt that. With all these considerations around data, privacy, around security, around governance, so on and so forth.
Yeah, and I can think of kind of products that you would want to share. Like, let's say you have this might be a simpleton example, but please bear with me. Like, you have your home insurance and your auto insurance, two separate providers, right? And you want to somehow connect those for whatever reason, visualization. The traditional companies want to own both of those things and give you a heavy discount and do all that, right? So like, it's not exactly how they're motivated currently. It's like, make that data share. They're like, why don't you just bring it into our platform and we'll show you it all together that way, right? So like I said, it's a simple example, but like, I'm sure there's interesting business things within that have to be thought through. And maybe I should combine those, like, honestly, in the current, if that's the way it works. But
as Tim was saying earlier, companies like Lemonade are moving in that direction, where they are, wanting to sell you products which are very diverse, from your health needs to your personal needs. I want to put up a pool in my house, I can buy insurance for that, right? So on and so forth. Very custom insurance products. And then you being a single point customer for them, you can see your dashboards and things like that. So we are moving in that direction, but you are absolutely right, Mike. It's still a long way to go.
Yeah, I wouldn't think that kind of trend would be hot for a while, unless the government gets involved and starts mandating it. But again, my opinion only. It's not necessarily the opinion of this panel or Accelerate, but I'll just throw that out there. So that was pretty much what I had today. Vikram, Tim, I'll give you one more chance to add anything that you think we missed. And then also, audience, please, if you have another question, let me know, and we'll be happy to answer it. We have a little bit of time. Vikram, why don't you go first?
So I think the one area or the big trend, Mike, that I just want to touch upon is around automation. And that is the other trend that a lot of insurance companies are kind of getting into. And it is all linked to, what applications you have as you move to the cloud. But automating a large part of the whole insurance process, that is one area where a lot of activity, a lot of energy, and a lot of investment is happening from the insurance companies. Now, whether these are chatbots, whether these are digital person, or these are other areas of automation, process automation. That is another area where a lot of investment in insurance companies is happening today.
Yeah, and so you're talking about BPO basically, but business process optimization, and how do we get more for the same amount of people type of thing.
That is
and I think
you are right.
AI also plays a role in that, right? By making claims, not claims, but like say underwriting, by making recommendations versus just giving you data, right? Like that kind of thing. Which hopefully I didn't steal your idea, Tim, but it seems like that's an area that could happen. All right, so Tim, I didn't steal your idea. Do you have another idea?
You did not steal my area, but you you got adjacent to it. So AI was something I was thinking of, and as Vikram was mentioning, process automation. The insurance industry still has so much unstructured data, whether it's pictures from a car accident or an x-ray for health or a picture of your home or whatever, right? Just stuff that's not structured, and even in insurance form to some degree. So in order to effectively automate the process and effectively use AI and run that information through rules engine and so forth, you need to be able to extract that information from that unstructured data. Excuse me. And that's a trend that we're seeing, and a capability that seems to be getting much stronger recently is the ability to extract real data from those unstructured formats, be they videos or whatever, and taking that as an input into the process automation and some AI to make some recommendations and so forth. It's just going to be so powerful, in the coming year or two. It'll be transformational to these big insurers.
Yeah, you can see how the especially in claims area, having access to photos and the various things you need to do in order to make a decision about it, being able to process that data more easily would be very helpful, it seems like. Yeah, makes sense. Okay, Jill, any other questions from the audience? I think, Jill, you're still with us.
I am. I just couldn't get my mouse to activate. I do have a comment, and actually, if you guys don't mind, I'd like to ask Michael Stewart from the audience to ask this himself. It's a long, there might be a question in there. Michael, if you're okay with that, I'd like to unmute you to ask that. I don't know if he is willing. Let's see. Now my sister, there we go. Michael, are you with us?
Yes, that'd be great. Thank you.
Yeah.
Hi, gentlemen. It's been a pleasure listening.
Yeah, welcome, Michael. Thanks for joining.
I run an artificial intelligence company, so let me start by saying I'm in this game a bit, and we have focused some on insurance, but tons on banking and energy and tons of other government and industry areas. So as a caveat, I wanted to see how AI was unfolding in insurance as an industry, and this talk has been helpful in understanding that. So Vikram and Michael, thank you for your insights. Tim, I appreciate hearing what you had to say on that. I'm more raising an issue that I wonder if you guys have thought about, and that is that AI as a science is built to change itself. So the technology is self-changing, self-modifying. You run an algorithm and it learns something and it modifies the algorithm to learn more, etc. And in that sense, if that learning behavior tends that AI in the wrong unmanaged direction, then biased results, as you pointed out, or lots of other problems, errors in its prediction, all of those types of things start to happen. And all of that is loosely called ethical or responsible in the sense that it's not intentionally applied to harm your customer, so to speak. But the point I'm trying to bring out is that insurers in the property casualty markets across all industries, to me, have an underlying unmodeled, unpriced risk where their clients are using AIs that can be company killers if these propensities to harm their clients are unchecked or unmitigated, if they're doing so without the responsibility of controlling it in the right way. And I see that as a large existential risk to the insurance industry en masse, in the sense that this technology that is radicalizing every industry is not being sophisticatedly modeled and insured correctly by the insurance industry, A, because they don't understand it, B, because they're slow to adopting AI themselves, so their own tech teams and their own underwriting teams don't have a grip on the technology nor its risks to an automobile manufacturer they may be insuring, or a bank they're insuring, or ... And so this notion that there is a evolutionary curve of technology affecting all industries that is built to self-modify, and it's ungoverned right now in any responsible or ethical way, it seems to me like the insurers have a huge underlying risk that they're not talking about modeling or pricing for.
And And you think that risk is higher than in other industries because of the nature of insurance?
Well, I believe so, because if I'm a large P&C carrier and I'm insuring across 20 industries, and I don't know, and I'm not aware of, and I'm not modeling an inherent risk that's growing in all 20 industries and in all customers I'm insuring, then yes, it's profoundly more effective to me than it is to any single company who may or may not come across that problem when they're deploying that technology.
Yeah, I see what you're saying. So they can, if they model the risk wrong, then it can be, like you say, company
Yeah,
killer.
you look
And
at
nothing
United
to
Health.
do with having nothing to do
United
with
Health
social media.
started using AIs and they touted it in the press and they got a lot of positive publicity. But then, a year later, it comes out that all 7 of the AI applications that they were touting were deemed to have been erroneously deployed, ineffectively managed, and thereby spitting out negative results that could have been a company killer to United Health. And certainly it was a huge brand damage to them. And that's just a single example across one, health industry example, but this is happening in all industries now, and where the consumer facing issues of data accessibility and data misuse and HIPAA issues and all of those, sure, those come to play. But the bigger issue to me is that nobody is getting a grip on the existential risk of the AI technologies themselves that those companies are deploying without the insurer who's insuring them being aware of it, knowing what it's about, accurately being able to model it and pricing it into their price risks. And that to me seems like an entire industry exposure across multiple industries to a single thing that the insurers are blind to.
Yeah, understood. Tim or Vikram, do you want to respond to that at all?
No, so yeah, so Michael, you bring out a great point, right? So on the ethical use of AI, and some of this is kind of more at least the way my view is that these are more startup pains, because at the end, whatever models you build on AI, while they are self-learning, and the end result is either it provides a better product, it provides a better service, or a better consumer experience, right? All those 3 axes. So while people have used some of these AI initiatives as more marketing tools or marketing gimmicks, but unless they deliver on those 3 or 4 axes, the use of AI is only going to be incidental to that. That's the way I use it. I see it. Because if you use AI incorrectly and if your models are not programmed properly, the outcome is going to be only short-lived. Because finally you are still whether it is insurance or any other industry, you are still surviving or you are still competing with your other competitors who are giving out products which are having a consumer based outcome driven from them. So I think at the end, while we may see some ups and downs in this, I think it will kind of settle in where there will be standardization on what AI models are used across the industry. The way we came up with data standardizations, the way we come up with API standardization, I think we will move into that, and maybe that will get regulated at one time to kind of take care of this issue of saying that can these models have biases. But that's the way I think the industry will evolve and move towards. That's my personal view.
Yeah,
I agree, Vikram.
makes sense.
Go ahead, Tim or Michael.
No worries. What were you going to add? I wasn't going to add it, probably would add less value. So go ahead, respond.
I think the notion of biasness in data is incredibly important, but it is only one of 20 or 30 variables that a responsible ethical AI architecture would look at. And so the notion that we could only deal with biasness through data models belies the algorithms difficulties, it belies the security layers, all of the things that you were talking about on cloud are also inherent in AIs. And so I think it's a bigger problem than what normal technologists, and I was one too, I heard you talking, Mike, about your 20, 30 years of deep stack, history. And, those of us that have that longevity know that the complexity of the underlying architecture of AIs, is much broader than just the biasness issue. And I think the naivete of the industries to not know what they're playing with means that banks are deploying AIs in very dangerous ways today that we're finding and helping them scramble to fix. And the hospitals are doing that, and governments are doing that, and so there's a big burgeoning problem around the notion of the technology that got immense positive hype, but the perceptions of its negative potentials are limited and naive. And insurers who insure across all industries seem to me to be the guys holding the bag at the end of the day, that if these AIs go rogue in ways that they already are but are being kept quiet, then the insurers are left holding that bag and have to scramble to try to address it. And I'm just wondering if they're being proactive at that, or if they're still head in the sand, so to speak, and waiting for it to happen to them 2 or 3 years from now.
Yeah, so as we're talking about this, I realize that this probably is its own zip chat topic. And so I would encourage you to reach out to Tim and to Jill and share your thoughts with them, and maybe we can come back and just talk about that in a future session.
Terrific. I mean, I love what you guys offered here. This is my first time listening in on you, and all 3 of you were incredibly accurate and erudite on what you were saying. So I'm not trying to be negative on anything that today talked about. I am trying to raise an issue that is dear to my heart because I run an AI company where we're trying to deal with these problems. We've started a responsible AI platform to address it on a global scale. And I'm wondering if insurance is a current, hot, available industry to early adopt this notion of responsible AI before it gets out of hand, or is insurance going to lag behind, and therefore we would be better off spending our time addressing these problems directly with the banks or directly with other industry participants?
Yeah, that's a tough one to judge, and probably a bigger conversation than we can have here. So why don't we
dominate this? Thank you for the time to even say what I've said. I appreciate that. And yeah, I'd love to follow up with Tim and you guys to see if that's a possibility later.
Yeah, I mean, it's an interesting topic for sure. I mean, I think all of us are like, see it as insightful. So let's see if we can, if it makes sense for us to move that forward and have a deeper discussion. I'm really interested in AI. I wouldn't say I'm good at it by any means. Like I haven't done any actual implementation, but
I get it.
The prospects of AI, from a long time ago. In fact, I got into the CS industry or computer science because of AI. So like it made this definitely a fascinating topic to me. All right, so we're approaching the end of time.
Email.
Yeah, go ahead. Did you have something else, Michael?
I was just going to say my email is michael@lucid.ai, and I see yours here on the screen. So I'll try to reach out to you if you don't reach out to me.
Sounds good. Yeah, thanks for your questions and comments. We appreciate it. It actually definitely added to the value of this zip chat, so I really appreciate it. And finally, Vikram, Tim, thanks for joining me again and talking about these trends. I appreciate the nice feedback from Michael. It's nice to hear that we're doing a decent job and helping people become more informed on these things. That's the goal. Without the audience, we wouldn't really have a point of being here. So thanks to the audience for being part of this. And we'll talk to you next time. Cheers, everyone.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you, everyone.